You're watching Beyond 100 Days. The British Prime Minister brings her Brexit Plan B to Parliament, but the Labour leader says nothing's changed.
After the crushing defeat last week, Theresa May said she has been listening and Brexit has to happen.
She would seek changes to a key sticking point, the Irish backstop, but the EU shows no sign of moving. And you might not know her yet, but you will. Kamala Harris becomes the 8th Democrat to say she wants to run against Donald Trump.
Also on the programme, a Syrian rocket is shot down above the ski slopes of the occupied Golan Heights. Israel confirms they have since targeted Iranian positions near Damascus. And red sky at night, stargazers' delight, the super blood wolf moon that was visible across the northern hemisphere. The last we will see, sadly, for 10 years.
Hello and welcome. I'm Katie Silver in Washington. Rob Watson is in London. Now, anyone expecting the British Prime Minister to announce a dramatic change of course will be disappointed. Mrs May's new Brexit plan appears to be very similar to her old plan. She is trying to get further concessions from Brussels on the Irish backstop border issue, but the EU failed to give her these last time.
The one concession that was made today is that a £65 fee that EU citizens in Britain were expecting to pay for settled status has been scrapped. Perhaps, in truth, Mrs May had no option but to dig in. To concede to the softer Brexit some are demanding might win her support on opposition benches, but it would split her own party irrevocably. And is she any different to the opposition leader, Jeremy Corbyn, who appears to be champion of Leave up north and of Remain down south?
The right way to rule out no deal is for this House to approve a deal with the European Union. That is what this government is seeking to achieve. The only other guaranteed way to avoid a no-deal Brexit is to revoke Article 50, which would mean staying in the EU.
The Prime Minister seems to be going through the motions of accepting the results, but in reality is in deep denial. The logic of that decisive defeat is that the Prime Minister must change her red lines because her current deal is undeliverable.
Now, Rob, this has been going on for years. Is there any chance that this Plan B might be more effective than Theresa May's Plan A?
Over 2.5 years, I guess, to be precise. I think the honest answer is we simply don't know, but I was struck by one thing, which is just how so little has changed on this deal since she decided not to put it to a vote of MPs on December the 11th. And again, just how, with less than 70 days to go, we still have absolutely no idea how and when Brexit will end.
It's very unclear, isn't it?
Certainly
now, turning
is.
our head to US politics, Kamala Harris wants to be America's first female president, its first president of Asian heritage, and its first non-white woman president. Now, that's a lot of firsts. But then the senator from California is used to breaking barriers.
She's the daughter of an Indian mother and a Jamaican father. She was the first female Attorney General of California, and when she was elected in 2016, became the country's first Indian American senator. She enters an already crowded field of Democrats who are running to unseat Donald Trump. 8 so far, with many more still to declare. Kamala Harris is getting attention because she's already made a name for herself on the Judiciary Committee with her rigorous and lawyerly cross-examinations.
I'll point out to you that Justice now, Neil Gorsuch, was nominated by this president. You both attended very prestigious law schools. You both clerked for Justice Kennedy. You were both circuit judges. The only difference is that you have been accused of sexual assault. How do you reconcile your statement about a conspiracy against you?
I explained that in my opening statement.
Now, Democrats this weekend rejected a proposal by President Trump to reopen the government. His proposition involved getting money for his border wall in exchange for temporary protection for Dreamers, the young people brought to America illegally by their parents. Now, Democrats said this wasn't a fair trade, since Mr. Trump was the one who took away Dreamers' protection in the first place.
The other people who were really not happy with the deal were Mr. Trump's own base, who felt it was too soft on undocumented immigrants. Conservative commentators rounded on the president, suggesting he was betraying his supporters. So we're stuck with a shutdown now 31 days old. And remember, It's a shutdown Mr. Trump said he wanted.
If we don't get what we want, one way or the other, whether it's through you, through a military, through anything you want to call, I will shut down the government.
Okay,
absolutely.
fair enough.
And
We
I am
disagree.
proud, and I'll
We
tell you what,
disagree.
I am proud to shut down the government for border security, Chuck.
But with polls suggesting the public does indeed blame the president for the 800,000 government workers who aren't getting paid, this weekend he tried an approach that was a little different, a little more conciliatory.
In order to build the trust and goodwill necessary to begin real immigration reform, there are two more elements to my plan. Number one is 3 years of legislative relief for 700,000 DACA recipients brought here unlawfully by their parents at a young age many years ago.
I've got to say, Katie, President Trump, that if there was a government shutdown in the UK, you would really know about it pretty quickly. I mean, the effects would be pretty widespread. What about in the US? I mean, are people aware of it up and down and across the country?
There is certainly a feeling here, Rob, of frustration, a feeling of 31 days being too long, and the economy is really starting to feel it as well. So we've got 800,000 government workers, and they're about to get into their second pay cycle of not being paid. As you say, it's this historic 31-day period, and we're really feeling it here. But there's hope from both sides that perhaps this new proposal may garner some leeway, but the Democrats so far haven't embraced it. They're saying that it was Mr. Trump in the first place that made these changes regarding the Dreamers. So a rollback on that isn't actually really a compromise. But Rob, we're going to have to wait and see. And, as I say, on this side of the Atlantic, all fingers are crossed.
I guess we will. During the 11 years that I lived in the US, there were government shutdowns, but none of them as long as this. Right, police are dealing with 2 security alerts in Londonderry and Northern Ireland, less than 48 hours after an explosion in a hijacked pizza delivery van in the city centre. Officers are investigating reports that masked men hijacked 2 vehicles, then abandoned them in separate incidents about 2 hours apart. People have been ordered to leave houses within range of the vehicles. Bomb disposal experts have been called in.
The Venezuelan government says a number of military officers have been arrested after they allegedly stole weapons and kidnapped 4 officials in the early hours of Monday. Footage shows residents and security forces clashing in the area. In earlier videos, the leader of the group called for the removal of President Nicolas Maduro from office and appealed for the public to support the revolt.
The European Union has imposed sanctions on 4 Russians over the Salisbury nerve agent attack on Sergei and Yulia Skripal last year. It said 2 agents at Russia's military intelligence agency, the GRU, as well as its head and deputy head, were responsible for possession, transport and use of the nerve agent on the former spy. The Russian government continues to deny it was behind the attack.
The superblood wolf moon was visible around the world last night. It happens when the Earth gets between the sun and the moon, which prevents direct sunlight from reaching it, and so it appears red.
It's going to be another 10 years before we get the next one, so those of you who missed it, you have to hang on in there. Here's our science editor, David Shukman, to explain.
An experience that left everyone amazed.
You can see the moonlight on your eye.
The moon closer to Earth than usual, and hour by hour being transformed from its normal brilliant white to a darker and more mysterious red.
Amazing. It's, as you can see, it's a party atmosphere, but everybody is just enjoying the spectacle.
This sequence of pictures shows how the shadow of the Earth gradually fell across the moon, our atmosphere casting a reddish light on the lunar surface. It produced a mesmerizing sight for millions. This image was taken in Argentina. But dozens of different countries were...
So Rob, not only was there this majestic moon over the Earth today, it was also what's known as Blue Monday, which is the day that many of us can feel very depressed, especially here in the Northern Hemisphere, where we're only a third of the way through winter, and it really does feel like these dark and gloomy days are going to go on for a long time. But if you felt like that, Rob, I've got a little remedy for you.
I did.
You have? Oh,
I'm
sorry to hear that.
Blue Monday.
Yeah, Blue Monday.
Deep
I'm sure
blue.
it's wide felt. But here, for you and for the viewers, if they've been going through it, it is a nice little video, hopefully to pick you up. And this right here is what I would call a dancing pigeon. And as you can see, it's really going along in time with the beat to blurred lines. Seems like it's really enjoying that boogie, Rob.
Here I go. I'm getting down. I'm getting down with that pigeon. Well, we
I'm
definitely.
good.
we all need a little bit of light relief, do we not? Do you know, I've got to say, Katie, I have played when I was younger in bands where the drummer didn't keep as good time as that pigeon. The other thing, I guess the reason why we love it, don't we, when animals show that they can behave like humans. So the task is, on Blue Monday, to find a pigeon who can solve Brexit, and maybe the government shutdown as well, like a super smart pigeon.
It could be the pigeon, or it could even be perhaps Theresa May's cat. She might also be a good contender. But I think if anyone can find the animal responsible for such a task, Rob, it's you, our Brexit king.
I can tell you one thing, my cat couldn't do it. Absolutely hopeless, but lovely. This is Beyond 100 Days from the BBC.
Coming up for viewers on the BBC News Channel and BBC World News, China's slowest economic growth drops to its slowest rate in almost 30 years. We look at what it means for the rest of the world.
And with no end in sight to the US shutdown, we'll hear from a worker who's not been paid since before Christmas. That's still to come.